Hello everyone. So today I was looking at this question on the community, and the question is about a situation where you have different projects in Jira, which is of course the case for a lot of us. Now, when you have different projects in Jira, you may have these projects delivering something for a common release, and it is actually very common. And the question is that if we have this situation where, let us say, we have 5 projects or 3 projects, and these 3 projects, they have their own issues. Maybe we should say work or task moving forward. Basically, these issues, and they have a version like version 1.3 or version 1.4, and this version is, of course, a deliverable, a release which they are doing for maybe their customers. Now, in Jira, whenever we talk about versions, these versions are project specific. So if you go to your Jira instance, let us say you have 2 projects, Android and maybe bug tracking, right? Let us say we have 2 projects. If I go to my first project, in this case Android, I can take a look at my versions. So I can go to the project settings. I can then go to, I think I need to, why can't I find the versions here? So come on, project settings, and where are my versions? I'm looking for my versions. Okay, code. Maybe I need to enable something. No? Right, okay. Maybe because I don't really have the rights on this Jira instance, but let me open another Jira instance. So, okay. So this is my Jira instance where I wanted to show you that if you have 2 projects, Android, and I'll also open maybe bug tracking. Let us say this one. So if I go to Android and if I go to my releases, you have the option to create these releases. So you can see here that in my Android project, we have these releases. In my bug tracking project, I may have different releases, but these are project specific. So this is something really important. Now, to solve this problem, basically a problem where you want to have a common release, there are few things that you can do, and none of these things are like perfect, but the first thing that you can do is you can always create a version with the same name, and this is what many people do. So maybe if you have a similar situation, you can go to your first project, create a version like version or maybe v1.1, right? Create this version in this project, and at the same time go to your second project and third project, and basically keep on doing the same thing. Basically have a version with the same name. Now this is something that many people do and have been doing for a long time, because that is how things are, and there is nothing wrong with it. Wrong with this approach. Of course, you can't really have just one version and then release it and expect the other versions to be released. Fortunately, what you can do is you can always it depends how you're using it. You can use advanced roadmaps, and you can use then CPR, cross project releases, but even you can do this manually. I know a lot of managers, they have, like, it is one of their responsibility to make sure that the versions are in sync. And of course, it is not really ideal, but it works in a way, because you are, for the end user, for the developers, if the developer is working in project 1, they will be using version 1.1. If they're using project 2, they will be using version 1.1. But of course, in reality, it is a different version. But for the user, for the developer, they just care about the version 1.1. So this works. This approach works totally fine. I know some people also use labels to manage it, or maybe a custom field, because you can have custom field with the same name, and then you can just use that custom field to mark your stories from different projects, basically using some kind of a version. So this is something that also works. I'll also comment here that you can also use custom field in those projects, right? And use that. Now, this approach of using custom field is also, I've seen a lot. And I'm saying this because when people are using Jira, or when they started using Jira, they realize that, yeah, they can customize it. And that is how things are supposed to be. And that is why people love using Jira, because you have not one, two, but multiple ways of solving a problem. For example, if you create a custom field, you have of course different types. Whenever we are talking about like limiting something, like you want like a specific list to appear, or a drop down, then of course you can use a select list, single choice, or select list multiple choice. This works. This kind of works, but you can also use something called as a version picker. But the problem with the version picker is that when you create a version picker, so let us create a version picker. So this is a version picker, and if you create this, you can create a field which you can of course associate. Let me associate this with everything, and like all the projects that I have in my Jira instance. And now if I go back to my project, let me just wait for it to finish. I think it is probably adding that particular version field to all the projects. So if you click on the plus sign, it will give you the option to select the version, but these versions are again not really versions from other projects. It is basically your version from the same project. So this is something that you can think of use, but this approach is only for those cases where you want to use versions where the standard version field is something that you want to maybe limit only for releases, but maybe for some reporting purpose you want to have one more field. So up to you. You can think of using it, but again, this will in a way, as I mentioned before, will only list those versions that are in that particular project. For example, if you look at the context here, we can probably create a context, and maybe I can create a context that will be limited to only two projects. So let us say my own projects, and if I go to Android and bug tracking, I can then of course add this. Now right now what I'm doing here is I am basically creating like list of versions, but I'm selecting here two projects. And if I go and select here or look at the options that I have, for example, it says here like maybe when you are trying to pick, it will list all the released versions first or unreleased versions first. So maybe this could be an improvement where we can maybe ask Atlassian that can you please give us an option to select here versions from multiple projects, but which, to be honest, this will not really work. This will not really make sense. And in this case, again, it is just a field that will list versions, so nothing great about it. Okay, let us talk about what else we can do. The other thing that you can do is, apart from using a custom field, which I think will only make sense if you're using your own drop down or your own select list. The second option is basically you create, let us say, a project where you only list your epics and your versions, and then have a common board where you have like all the projects listed or added as a source on that particular board. It could be a board, it could be maybe advanced roadmaps plan, but I think board will probably make much more sense and useful because it is simple. So this approach will work, but in this case, your versions can only be associated to epics, right? Not really stories and tasks or bugs, which again might not be ideal. So it can work. It will depend on how you organize your work. The other thing that you can do is you can just have one project and maybe have different epics and keep on creating those epics maybe for your mini projects. So these things, this situation works when you have like, maybe you have different teams, but they all have a common way of working, and maybe they have their own common board, or like not common board, their own specific board. But in this case, if you have different teams, different managers, then you need to have different projects. And sometimes it is good to have different projects because you know that your project 1 is for this particular technology, project 2 is for this particular piece of work or whatever you're doing. Although you might be doing something for a common feature, but you need to have different projects sometimes, or in most cases. So yeah, when it comes to having these versions, I think option number one is simple and straightforward. And there are some apps, if you go to Marketplace, like if you search on Marketplace, there are some apps that will let you sync sync the versions for you. But of course, you can do that manually as well. It is not really like, if you're talking about doing it once in a while, I think it makes sense to do it just manually. So yeah, these are a few things that I wanted to talk about and briefly show you as well. And that is it. I hope you found this video useful and you learned something new today. Thank you very much.